Hey, warriors, they never rejected you because you weren't smart enough. They rejected you because you saw too much. You noticed the shift in their eyes when truth walked in the unease people feel when they can't manipulate what they don't understand. You weren't a threat to their position, you were a threat to their illusion. Most people mistake intelligence for compliance. They like clever minds, as long as those minds remain predictable, polite, agreeable, easy to steer. But when intelligence becomes silent, observant, and emotionally detached, it becomes dangerous. That's when they start to whisper words like arrogant, cold, or aloof. Words meant to shame you back into obedience. You've probably felt it before, that quiet exile that happens when you stop explaining yourself. When you begin to see people not as who they pretend to be, but as a pattern of motives. They call it distance, I call it power. Because once you learn to detach from the need to be understood, you become unreadable, and the unreadable mind is untouchable. There's a reason most people never reach power. They crave approval more than control. They want to be loved for being good rather than feared for being right. But the truth is, morality has never protected anyone from betrayal. It only blinds them to the knives hidden behind a handshake. Most viewers won't stay beyond this moment. They'll feel the weight of this truth and retreat to comfort. But you're still here. That means something. It means the part of you that's been silenced is finally listening. So lean closer, because what you're about to hear isn't self-help, it's survival architecture. In this world, the strong don't shout. They study, they observe, they control the frame before others realize they're in one. You've been taught that manipulation is evil, but manipulation is simply influence without emotion. Every leader, every saint, every genius has used it. Only difference is, some do it unconsciously and call it charm. This is where your education begins, not in intellect, but in perception. The art of seeing what others miss and concealing what you understand. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." He meant that foresight is the purest form of power, the ability to act before emotion clouds your precision. Before we go further, I want you to make a small promise to yourself. You'll finish this to the end. Not for me, but for the part of you that's tired of losing quiet wars. And hit subscribe right now, because tonight you don't need motivation. You need awakening. Now listen carefully. The first law of dark genius isn't about control over others. It's about control over reaction. The moment someone can trigger you, they own you. And the most brilliant minds in history mastered one thing before they mastered strategy: emotional silence. Most people never learn that silence is a weapon, but you will. Silence terrifies people. They think it means weakness, when in truth, it means calculation. The moment you stop reacting, they lose their map to you. Their words hit a wall, their tactics collapse, and they start revealing themselves just to fill the quiet. That's when you win, not through argument, but through absence. When someone insults you, they want a signal, a flicker of emotion that proves they've touched you. But when you stay composed, you force them into confusion. You make them chase meaning where there is none. That's the essence of Law 1. Weaponize silence. Think of the boardroom, the classroom, the dinner table. The loudest one rarely holds power. It's the one who listens like a mirror. When they speak, they choose every word, as if it were currency. They understand the secret most people never do, that silence doesn't just protect energy, it creates suspense. Suspense makes people perform, confess, expose. The genius doesn't need to reveal strategy. They let others reveal themselves. There was a CEO I once studied, brilliant, ruthless, respected. In meetings, he'd let his executives argue for half an hour while he sat perfectly still. No expression, no nods, no frowns, just quiet analysis. Eventually, they'd start contradicting themselves, desperate to please the silence. Then, with a single question, not an answer, he'd undo their entire illusion of control. That's the Machiavellian way, to dominate through patience, not reaction. You must learn to master that kind of energy. Emotional restraint is not numbness, it's direction. It tells the world, I choose when to care. And that choice is power. Because once you decide where your attention goes, you decide what survives. Now you might be thinking, but what if they misinterpret my silence? Let them. People will always invent stories to fill the gaps they can't control, and the more they project, the more you learn about them. Silence is not submission, it's data collection. Never forget, the calmest person in the room dictates the tempo of every conflict. The moment they rush, you've won. The moment you rush, you've lost. That's your first threshold, the entry into invisible dominance. But silence alone isn't enough. There's a deeper layer, one that separates strategic thinkers from manipulators. The second law of dark genius is the art of controlled exposure. You don't need to hide everything. You need to show just enough to seem transparent, while keeping your core invisible. Geniuses understand this paradox. People trust what they think they see. So you let them see what you want, a version of yourself that disarms, distracts, and directs their focus away from your intent. Remember Machiavelli's whisper, everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you truly are. If you understand that, you've already stepped ahead of 90% of society. If you're still here, it means your mind is opening to the dark mechanics beneath every human interaction, and that deserves something so hit-like. If what you've heard so far speaks to that quiet fire inside you, stay with me. There's more. You know what to do. Because what comes next, Law 3, is the pivot point. The place where silence turns into strategy. The third law is subtle, and it's where the real predators separate from the thinkers. Control the frame, or be controlled by it. Every argument, every negotiation, every conversation is a hidden contest for definition. Whoever defines the situation first owns it. That's the frame, the invisible story everyone unconsciously agrees to follow. If you walk into a room apologizing, you've already accepted their frame, that you owe something. If you speak with certainty, even while uncertain, you bend their perception around yours. This is why true geniuses rarely argue facts. They argue context. Because once you control the context, facts rearrange themselves to fit your narrative. That's what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "Men are so simple and yield so much to necessity that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived." He wasn't praising deceit, he was exposing the truth. People follow confidence, not accuracy. Imagine this. Two co-workers compete for the same promotion. One keeps proving their worth, endless reports, polite emails, long explanations. The other, without saying much, starts treating the outcome as inevitable, talks about when they take over, not if. Weeks later, the boss unconsciously adjusts reality to fit that tone. The quiet one wins, not because they were more qualified, but because they set the emotional gravity of the interaction. That's how power works. not through confrontation, but through narrative control. And here's the Machiavellian twist most people never grasp. You don't have to be right to dominate. You only have to make others feel you are. The human brain is wired to surrender to authority, cues, posture, tone, pacing, rhythm. You've felt it before. Someone enters a room and everything slows down. That's frame control. It's not magic. It's calibrated confidence rooted in emotional detachment. You must learn to pause longer, speak slower, and never explain unless asked twice. Explanations are a form of weakness. The moment you defend your truth, you imply it's fragile. Power never explains, it demonstrates. Now, hold that thought, because this is where most minds fall into the trap. They learn to control the frame, and then they use it for validation. That's the death of power. You must stay indifferent to recognition. The frame exists to control perception, not to feed ego. The moment you need them to see you as powerful, you've given them power again. So practice this. When someone questions your competence, don't argue. Ask a question that forces them to reveal more. Reverse the lens. Because the Machiavellian mind doesn't fight for dominance, it lets the opponent expose their insecurity. That's how you win wars without battles. And yet, there's a darker layer beneath this one. The law geniuses guard the most, because it's not enough to control the frame in the moment. You must control what people remember after it. That brings us to Law 4, emotional imprinting. Most people think influence ends when the conversation does. But the ones who truly understand human nature know the opposite is true. Real power begins after you've left the room. That's Law 4, emotional imprinting. You see, logic fades, but emotion lingers. The genius doesn't try to convince people, they condition them. Every interaction plants a feeling that grows long after you're gone. If they remember you with unease, they'll obey. If they remember you with fascination, they'll follow. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear." The genius learns how to create both in perfect balance. They know when to make someone feel safe, and when to let silence turn safety into uncertainty. It's a dance of tension and release, empathy and intimidation, not to manipulate cruelty, but to command memory. Picture this: two leaders. One explains their strategy over and over, hoping to persuade. The other speaks only once, calm, precise, unhurried, and then walks away. Days later, the team still feels the weight of that voice. They replay it in their heads, trying to decode it. That's emotional imprinting. You don't force loyalty. You make your absence louder than your presence. Every great manipulator in history mastered that silence after effect. Think of it as an echo, a residue of your composure that unsettles the insecure. When you say less, every word gains mass. When you do less, every action becomes myth. To apply this, start paying attention to how you exit situations. Don't rush goodbyes. Don't over-explain your reasoning. Leave your audience slightly suspended, just uncertain enough to keep thinking about you. The human mind hates open loops. It will keep replaying until it closes them. That's how memory turns into magnetism. Now understand the danger here. Emotional imprinting can become manipulation if used carelessly. That's why the true Machiavellian never uses it for ego. They use it for structure. When your calm creates reflection, you lead minds. When your detachment creates confusion, you dominate them. But when you lose control of your intention, you become the manipulator, enslaved by your own illusion of power. So, here's the test. After any conversation, ask yourself not, did they agree? But, what did they feel when I left? That's the real scoreboard, because if they felt curiosity, you've planted a seed. If they felt fear, you've built boundaries. If they felt both, congratulations, you've stepped into invisible authority. You've now crossed through silence, perception, and memory. But to hold power, you must also learn the most overlooked Machiavellian principle, the power of unpredictability. See, the predictable mind is controllable, the unpredictable mind impossible to contain. And those who master unpredictability don't just outsmart their enemies, they rewrite the rhythm of every game they enter. Unpredictability is the currency of psychological survival. When people can't forecast your next move, they can't control your outcomes. That's why the fifth law is, be unreadable by design. Predictability gives others a map to manipulate you. They know when you'll speak, how you'll react, and where to strike. But when your rhythm breaks pattern, when your silence becomes laughter, or your calm turns into sudden precision, you steal their ability to prepare. Geniuses use unpredictability, not for chaos, but for control through confusion. Think of the greatest chess players. They make moves that look reckless until 3 turns later, when the entire board bends toward their plan. The average mind seeks safety in predictability. The Machiavellian mind understands that safety breeds vulnerability. When you're unpredictable, others hesitate. Hesitation is the pause where power enters. It doesn't mean acting erratic. It means acting strategically inconsistent. You must be the storm they can't chart. The moment people think they know you, do something that forces them to reevaluate their map. Don't always respond with silence sometimes, respond with precision. Don't always defend sometimes, walk away mid-sentence. The goal isn't to impress, it's to disorient. When you do this correctly, their perception starts orbiting you. They think about what you'll do next, even when you've left. That's not unpredictability, that's gravitational control. Here's the secret. Unpredictability makes you memorable. It creates fascination wrapped in fear. The human brain craves patterns when it doesn't find one. It keeps returning until it does. You become the pattern they can't solve. Machiavelli hinted at this in his writings. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force. He wasn't talking about recklessness. He was describing the advantage of disruption. The world belongs to those who can break patterns, while others remain trapped inside them. Use this in small doses. If you always arrive early, arrive late once, and make them feel the silence. If you always reply instantly, take a day. People learn your value in the moments you withhold it. But here's the paradox. Unpredictability is useless if your core isn't stable. Chaos without control is just noise. So, while you master being unreadable, you must also master being anchored. That's where the next law comes in, the law of inner authority. This is the moment where you stop chasing validation and begin projecting power without words. Because once unpredictability shakes the world around you, your inner authority must hold it still. If you're still listening, it means you're not just curious, you're transforming. You're not here to play their game, you're here to rewrite it. Now, pay attention. Law 6: Command without needing to lead. Leadership is often misunderstood. Most people think it's about giving orders, wearing confidence like armor, standing taller than the rest. But true Machiavellian leadership doesn't command through volume, it commands through gravity. That's Law 6, command without needing to lead. The most powerful people rarely announce their authority. They don't demand respect, they draw it. Their mere presence creates alignment. The trick is that they never chase loyalty. They make others compete to earn proximity. Think about the people you followed in life not because they told you to, but because something about them pulled you in. Maybe it was how they spoke with calm precision. Maybe it was how they looked at chaos and didn't blink. That calm isn't personality, it's engineering. The genius calibrates emotion the way a general studies terrain. Every word, every pause, every subtle gesture is measured. Machiavelli once wrote, "A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men and imitate those who have been supreme." But the hidden meaning is this: imitate not their actions, but their aura. Command presence begins within. It's the emotional silence that says, "I know where I stand, even if the ground shakes." To practice this, stop trying to convince people. Influence starts when persuasion ends. When someone challenges your opinion, don't rush to defend, ask questions instead. People fear what they can't categorize. A question places you above the debate. It tells them you see more than they do, and the one who sees more naturally rules the frame. Command is not aggression, it's clarity. When others are drowning in chaos, you hold still, not because you're fearless, but because you know panic spreads faster than truth. Your composure becomes contagion. People start looking to you without realizing why. That's how true power grows quietly, invisibly, inevitably. A mentor once told me something I never forgot. If you want to lead lions, stop roaring. It took me years to understand it. The more you talk about control, the less you have. But when you project certainty through silence, your authority becomes psychological, not positional. When applied correctly, this law transforms every interaction. You stop needing permission to influence. You start bending the emotional temperature of rooms you enter. You become the reference point, the calm amid the noise. And once that happens, something fascinating follows. Your silence starts to draw curiosity, and your words start to reshape belief. If you've made it this far, you've already outlasted the average listener. Most people quit when they start feeling their own transformation, but you're still here, which means you're built for it. So here's your next challenge. When people look to you, don't give them clarity. Give them direction wrapped in mystery. Let them wonder what you know that they don't. Because that mystery is the purest form of control. Now let's go deeper. Because commanding presence is only half the game. To sustain it, you must master how others perceive your weakness. That's Law 7, turn vulnerability into theater. Weakness is the one thing people are trained to hide, and that's exactly why it's such a powerful tool in the hands of someone who understands it. That's Law 7, turn vulnerability into theater. See, when you hide your flaws, people sense it. They smell the insecurity behind perfection. But when you expose a controlled flaw deliberately, strategically, you flip the power dynamic. You become untouchable because now they believe they've seen your weakness. And the moment they think they understand you, they stop searching deeper. That's camouflage. This is what ancient tacticians called the illusion of openness. Show the world a small wound so they never suspect the armor underneath. Reveal what you can afford to lose and guard what truly matters. It's how great minds redirect attention. The key is intentional imperfection. Machiavelli hinted at this idea when he wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, few can touch." Seton. He understood that people are deceived by appearances far more easily than by logic. So, the wise man crafts appearances the way an artist crafts light, revealing only what serves the design. Imagine a leader admitting a small mistake, publicly, not out of guilt, but precision. Instantly, they appear honest, relatable, human. The audience drops its guard. And behind that veil of humility, the real maneuvers unfold unnoticed. That's the power of performed vulnerability. It creates trust where control can grow in silence. Now let's bring it closer to you. You've been taught that revealing emotion makes you weak. But what if you used it differently? What if you shared just enough to make people feel safe, then withdrew before it became mutual? You'd create emotional debt. They'd crave more honesty from you, not realizing they've given you theirs. This is psychological theater, and the stage is every conversation. The world doesn't reward authenticity. It rewards strategic authenticity. Show what they can empathize with, never what they can exploit. Remember, even a lion shows its belly when it wants prey to approach. When used wisely, controlled vulnerability deepens influence. It makes your coldness look earned, your silence look thoughtful, your detachment look noble. The world will call you balanced, calm, mature. But you'll know the truth. You simply learned how to weaponize perception. And that brings us to the next transformation. Because once you've mastered how others see your weakness, the next step is mastering how they see their own. That's where manipulation becomes mastery, not by force, but by reflection. You'll learn how to plant awareness so deep in others that they mistake it for their own realization. It's the sharpest form of invisible power, the art of making people believe they changed themselves. That's Law 8. Mirror the mind. Every mind is a mirror. The question is, who's holding it? That's Law 8. Mirror the mind. See, most people don't listen to understand. They listen to react. But the Machiavellian thinker listens to reflect. They become a mirror so clear that others start speaking to their own reflection, not realizing they're revealing the blueprint of their psyche. When someone argues, you don't counter, you absorb. Repeat their words back in a slightly different tone, and they'll correct themselves, exposing more than they meant to. The mirror forces them to confront their inconsistencies while believing you agree. That's psychological Aikido redirection without resistance. The mind loves validation. The moment you mirror someone's rhythm, their speech patterns, their pauses, their emotional cadence, their brain starts to relax. They mistake familiarity for trust. That's when influence begins. They start opening doors you didn't even ask for, because the easiest way to enter someone's mind is to make them feel like they've always known you. Machiavelli said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." The hidden meaning. People project themselves onto those they respect, so the strategist becomes the reflection of what others need to see. You show the ambitious your confidence, the insecure your empathy, the dominant your restraint. Every reflection tailored, never identical. This isn't deception, it's precision empathy. It's the art of understanding people so completely that you can move them without pushing. When you mirror correctly, they'll start finishing your thoughts, laughing before you do, echoing your language, and when that happens, the power dynamic has shifted. They no longer resist you because they think you're them. Picture this in everyday life. A heated colleague, a manipulative boss, a lover playing control games. All of them expect opposition. But when you mirror instead of fight, you create dissonance. Their aggression hits a soft surface and collapses inward. They start doubting themselves, trying to adjust tone, tempo, stance, and in that confusion, you decide the rhythm. The mirror does not fight the storm. It makes the storm question its reflection. But this law has a price. When you become too good at mirroring, people project their emotions onto you, their anger, their guilt, their chaos. You must learn to reflect without absorbing. That's where emotional boundaries turn from luxury into armor. And this is where many fail. They learn manipulation, but not maintenance. Power without distance always burns itself. That brings us to the next principle, Law 9, the distance of kings. Because the higher you rise, the less accessible you must become. Familiarity breeds equality, and equality erases authority. Softly, almost reflective, it's time to create the distance that makes your presence feel rare. Power decays in proximity. The closer people stand to it, the less they respect it. That's Law 9, the distance of kings. You've probably seen it, a leader who tries to be one of the team, who wants to be liked more than respected. It always ends the same way. Their voice loses weight, their presence loses gravity. What was once authority becomes noise. Machiavelli warned against this centuries ago. He who seeks to be loved will always risk being despised. You're not meant to disappear from reach, only from routine. Distance creates mystique, and mystique is what separates influence from familiarity. The moment people believe they can predict your mood, schedule, or approval, they start testing boundaries. But when you vanish just long enough, when you reappear with purpose, every word suddenly matters again. That's how kings ruled without shouting. Their silence was policy, their absence strategy. When they entered the room, attention followed as if by gravity. The genius understands this psychology. Scarcity amplifies value, so learn to pull back. Don't explain every thought. Don't attend every argument. Don't be accessible to every request. You are not oxygen, you are fire. They must approach carefully or burn. In social settings, this looks like calm selectivity. At work, it looks like detachment without arrogance. In relationships, it looks like presence without need. You answer, but not instantly. You appear, but not predictably. You give attention, but never to those who demand it. The result? You become the variable in every equation, and when others can't calculate you, they start respecting you. Remember, every empire falls not from invasion, but from erosion. The erosion begins the day a ruler becomes ordinary. Don't let your rhythm become common. Your words